my name is Sergio Morales and welcome back to our Photovoice video series. So in this specific video, we will be talking about photography techniques that you can use to better tell a story in your picture. So before getting more into the video, I highly recommend watching our very first introductory video to Photovoice, and the link to that video will be in the description below. So make sure to check that out first. So now moving on to our very first photography technique. It is called the rule of thirds. So oftentimes when we take a picture, we place the subject directly in the middle of a camera, but according to the rule of thirds, you do not necessarily have to do that. So instead, imagine that there is a grid of lines in your camera. And what I mean by that is, for example, this picture here of a wolf, you can see that this picture, it is divided into these grid lines. So imagine that these exact grid lines are in your camera. And the main premise of the rule of thirds is that you should put your subject where these lines intersect. So for example, here, 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 and then here. And by placing your subject in these points, it can create tension, energy, and interest in the picture rather than just simply centering the subject. So here we have an example of a wolf. You can see that one, obviously the wolf is not at the center. It is in the bottom right portion of the picture in this specific intersection. But because the wolf is not at the center, it leaves a lot of room for the landscape to also be emphasized. So here we can see a landscape, an Arctic, a glacier of some sort. And this landscape creates this sense of sublime, this intimidation, like this, the landscape is this grand thing. And the wolf is confronting this landscape. And that's the main story that this picture is trying to tell. And yeah, you can see a lot of space is dedicated towards this landscape to emphasize its grandness. But then at the same time, because of the rule of thirds, we know that the wolf is the main subject of the picture. So this is what the rule of thirds is about. So here we have a picture at the bottom, very, very similar dynamic. There is a lot of things going on, a lot of colors. You can see water, you can see concrete, green of the grass, you can see a tree, the sun, all these colors in the sky, all these clouds as well. But because of the rule of thirds, we know that the tree is the subject of the picture because it is in this specific intersection. So this is our very first photography technique. And now moving on to our second technique, it involves color. In this specific slide, it is divided into three main parts. So the first bullet point is how colors can be used to make something stand out relative to its surroundings. So an example of that is this picture here in the top right. You can see that this picture is taken at night, and because of that, there's a lot of darker colors. You can see black, gray, all shades of gray, but what your eye is immediately drawn to is the shoes here. And that's because of its color. The shoes are very bright, they're neon, and they contrast a lot with the surrounding colors. And because of that, you know that these shoes are like the main subject of the picture. And this is an example of how you can use color to make something stand out to its surroundings. So color contrasting. And then another side of this color thing is how colors can be used to create an emotion. Take note of that as well. So for example, light blue and calmness, yellow with vibrancy and happiness. So if you want to set the mood or set a mood in a picture, then try to see like what colors you could use in order to create a certain mood. So yeah, how colors can be used to create an emotion. And then the third part is the black and white concept. So if my picture was in black and white, how would it affect the viewer differently? So in here, you can see that there is the picture that is in black and white. You can see that there's a pier, but because it is in black and white, it creates this sense of eeriness in the picture. Like it is something that's coming out of a horror movie or a scary movie of some sort. But let's say the picture was in color instead. So instead of these colors, you would see like the blue of the lake, you see the greenery of the hills, the blue sky. And because of that, it will instead create a feeling of calmness and serenity, as opposed to this feeling of eeriness with this black and white filter. So next time you take a picture, also try to think how this picture would look like in a black and white filter. So that's the last point for this specific slide. So now moving on with a third technique, that is the use of perspective. So when we take pictures, we sometimes take pictures from the angle we're looking at. So we pull out our phones and we just take a picture. But instead, try out different angles, try out an angle from below, from different sides, try out an angle like from bird's eye view, because different angles can affect the emphasis and tone of the main subject in the photo. So an example of that is this picture here at the center, a picture that I took a couple of years ago for a photography class. And in this picture here, you can see that the subject is the red bird. So you can see, according to the picture from the angle, you can see like this bird is some sort of like grand figure, like some sort of teacher, some sort of like leader of some sort. And you can see like the rats and the turtle are like looking up to this bird, like they're listening to them, to this specific bird. So that a lot of that is attributed to the angle of the picture. The angle of the picture creates this story with these characters. But the thing would not, the message overall would not be given if it was from a bird's eye view. It would not have the same message. So again, try out different angles and see if different angles tell a different story to your subject. And then we have a fourth photography technique, which are leading lines. So this is one of my favorite techniques. And the main premise of leading lines is that you can use lines to draw attention to the main subject in your photo. So an example of this is in the picture in the top right. You can see a bench. Your eyes look immediately to the bench, but the bench create these lines. So here are these lines. And these lines lead you directly to the picture or the person sitting in the picture. And the person here is in the top left corner. So your eyes all go to the center and then they move to the person here. So this is what leading lines is about. You lead the person to the subject with lines. And then at the bottom, we have something very similar. We have a wolf, another wolf picture. We have a wolf, and you can see like the wooden planks here in the bridge, they lead you to the wolf. And not just the wooden planks here, but also the rail lines on the side. There are some sort of lines that also lead you to the wolf in some sense as well. And also to the back of the bridge. The back of the bridge also is a line that leads you to the wolf. And then we have the picture here at the center. And what I want to emphasize with this picture is that leading lines do not have to be straight. They could also be squiggly. So in this case, you can see that the floor is like curving a bit, but it leads you to the person. And same with the ceiling curves, but they also lead you to the person. So again, leading lines can also be curvy, squiggly, but the main premise is that they lead you to the main subject of the picture. So some things that you can use in order to create this sense of leading lines are hallways, sidewalks, rivers, fences, roads, and train tracks. So next time you take a picture and you want to try out something very different and cool, try to see what's in your surroundings and try to see what you can use as a leading line for your subject. So our very last slide will be about additional things to consider. So the first thing, especially in the context of a Photovoice project, is what do you want your photo to say? What is the main message of your photo? Or what is the theme of your photo? Especially in the context of a Photovoice project, this is like the most important thing. So all of these photography techniques that I just talked about, they can help you say what you want to say in the picture. But just because you use a technique or just because you do not use a technique, that doesn't mean that your photo is bad or good. The most important thing is the message of the picture. So these next two bullet points talk about ethical considerations. So the first thing important, do not take photos of other people without consent. And then the second one in this specific part is do not put yourself in a dangerous space or situation to take a photo. Like also to like your safety is very important. So then we have our fourth bullet point. And this bullet point talks about taking plenty of pictures, which is something I alluded to a lot previously in this video. So each picture might have different purposes. So when you have a subject that you want to take a picture of, try out different photography techniques, try out different angles, try to see like if you could use color to your advantage. Try to see if you could use some sort of leading lines around. Try to see if you can use the concept of the rule of thirds. Try out different things because everything might have a different purpose. So from those different pictures, you can then select the photos that best represent your ideas, even if they're not completely obvious. So if you take a picture of something that is more symbolic rather than literal, then you do not have to worry because that's where you will add your photo voice and narrative. So for this narrative part, I'm specifically talking about the show method, and we talk more about the show method in another video. So the link to that video will be in the description below, and make sure to check that out so you can learn another facet of what photo voice is. But yes, going back to this point, you can select the best photos that represent your ideas, even if they're not completely obvious. And a lot of that is attributed because you will do your very own narrative in the photo voice context. As I mentioned, photo voice is a very participatory way, very interactive way to create research about your own community. And also it involves photography. So make sure to have fun. Don't forget to have fun. So this concludes our video for today. Thank you all for watching, and thank you all for tuning in to our Photo Voice video series. So we have other videos in our series that you can check out in the description below. The links will be in the description below, so make sure to check them out. And again, thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Thank you.